Wendy, and then I'm going to let you take it away. And you said, Danielle, that I won't be on screen?
No, not unless you speak. It'll automatically switch per your voices.
Okay, so I'm going to mute as soon as you start going. I'm going to mute unless I have a question, because every once in a while it does get pretty loud, and I just don't want that to be a distraction.
Okay.
All right, it's 10 a.m.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Sandy Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the Leesburg Area Chamber of Commerce, and you are tuning in to part of our series of Ask the Expert. Today, we have Wendy Sellers. She is a human resource HR expert, and we are so lucky to be able to have her so that she can answer a lot of the questions, especially as we are transitioning into, transitioning from what's been going on with the effects of the coronavirus, and now transitioning back into possibly in the near future being able to open up our workspaces. So I know she's got a lot of information, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I'm going to introduce Wendy. Welcome, Wendy. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody. This is Wendy Sellers. I'm the HR lady, and I'm going to jump right in real quick to explain the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is very important for employers so that your employees can get paid while they're not working. And so first of all, I do want to let you know I'm going to have this presentation available on my website after this session. I will upload it so you can have it, and then you can contact me at any time as well. So as you know, this was signed in March, effective April 1st through the end of this year. And there's a couple different sections of it. One is that it expands FMLA protection for employees that normally wouldn't be covered, which many of you on the line may not have any type of FMLA in your organization due to your size, and now you will, just for coronavirus. There's a portion that covers paid sick leave, paid FMLA, and then tax credits as well. So this is effective, again, April 1st, and it's for employers with under 500 employees, and they must comply or attempt to comply by April 17th. So we're already past that date. It expands the Family Medical Leave Act for up to 12 weeks for all employers with under 500 employees. Also covers new hires, which never has happened before. You usually have to be with an organization for a year. This, however, is only for the 6 reasons related to COVID, which we will go over in detail. Paid sick leave is capped at 80 hours, except for the childcare reason, which is usually the biggest reason that I'm seeing all my clients are suffering with, is the employee possibly being gone for 12 weeks, which is a lot. And there's a higher cap there. So let's jump in to more information. There are exceptions to this, but be very, very careful with the exceptions. There are, I think, 88 questions and answers on the Department of Labor. That is probably what you need to refer to when you have some questions. The one exception is if you are an employer with under 25 employees, Family Medical Leave Act still does apply, but you don't have to hold the job open for someone who is on the extended child care portion of FMLA. So if anybody that's on the call today doesn't normally use FMLA, the whole purpose of FMLA is to protect the employee because, say, they're sick or they're having a surgery or a pregnancy, so that you don't give their job away. So for this specific situation with COVID, it's the same, except for if you're under 25 employees, you do not have to hold their job for extended FMLA. Let's just say you're in an essential workplace and you're still working, you can replace them. I caution you on making any decisions without thinking it through, because it is hard to find good employees, and it's even going to be even harder after this to keep them. There are also exceptions for employers under 50 employees, only for the childcare portion. I'm not going to get into this in detail because I'll be quite honest with you. It is not clear how to get that exception. If you go to the Department in Labor question and answers, which is at this website right here, and I'm going to go to it after we get through some slides, so don't feel a need to have to go to it right now. But this is answered on questions 58 and 59. And then there's also exceptions for healthcare providers. So if you're a doctor on the line, there are exceptions for you as well. We only have 25 minutes left, so I'm not going to go into that in detail. And then I will show you these websites in a few minutes, so just hang tight. So these are the 6 reasons that you may say, okay, my employee cannot come to work because one of these 6 reasons, and therefore I'm going to tap into this credit. The credit is exactly what it says. It's a credit. So you pay your employees for not being at work up to a certain limit, and then you get a credit on your quarterly taxes. So what does that mean? That means you need to be able to front the money. And if you can't do that, then you need to make another decision, because again, this is a quarterly tax. So the next one, I believe, is in July. So if you're able to front the money through then you should be using this so that you will be able to retain your employees when everything opens back up and you're able to work again. Number one, or not, before we even go into number one, this is if they're unable to work from home. So if they're able to work from home, none of this applies. So this is only for if they're unable to work from home. The first one is they're subject to a quarantine or isolation order, which in Florida, all of us are right now. And so this is what that means. If you cannot go to work because you're not essential workplace, then they fall under number 1. Number 2 and number 3 is when the employee themselves have been either advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, maybe they're waiting for test results, they're experienced COVID symptoms, and they're seeking medical diagnosis. We all know that it's very, very difficult to get medical care right now. And finally, there is some testing available. But if they think they've been infected or exposed, trust me, you do not want them in your workplace. And so they would fall under 1, 2, and 3. The next slides that we're going to go on is going to go into more detail, and then the caps as well. Number 4 is if the employee is taking care of somebody else who is maybe has to self quarantine or is under an isolation order. So maybe they're taking care of a family member, and family members are clearly defined in the question and answer list as well. So it's not their cousin that just happens to live next door. It has to be a close family member. And number 5 is the big one, which is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed. So if there's no child care available, I know many child care centers have closed. Many are still open, however, as well. But if there's no care available, and or now you're having a homeschool, this is number 5 is the only one that has more than 80 hours, and that's up to 12 weeks. And we will explain that as well. Number 6, nobody has any idea what this is at this point in time. So it's kind of a catch-all they threw in there in case something else comes out of this. So let's jump into the caps here. So it's important, let me go back. It's important to know these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and what order they're in. Why? Because the caps comply to specific numbers. So for reasons 1, 2, and 3, the employee themselves is experiencing something, or for number 6, which we don't know what that is yet, they have a cap of 80 hours within 2 weeks, and it has to be paid at 100%. So the employee is sick or is in an isolation order, they can choose to say, yes, I want the FFCRA sick paid leave, and you have to pay them up to 80 hours within 2 weeks. So within 2 calendar weeks is important for 1, 2, 3, and 6. And the reason I have up to 80 hours is you only have to pay them their normal hours. So if they only work 30 hours a week, then that'd be 60 hours. If they average, 40 hours over 2 weeks, then that would be 40 hours. And there are answers on the Department of Labor website of how you get those calculations if you have hours that are ever changing. If they take time after that, yeah, it's not protected for these reasons: 1, 2, 3, and 6. There are caps which we'll go over, and then you need to know that you will get a tax credit. Again, this isn't the next tax quarterly payment is in July. You need to talk to your accountant about how you normally do that. If you are a federal agency, you still have to comply with all this, but you do not get the tax credit. So hopefully that makes sense. Number 4 is if they're taking care of somebody who is sick: son, daughter, spouse, parent in loco. So if their family member is sick, they also get up to 80 hours, but it's not at 100% of their pay. It's reduced to 67% of their pay. So that's the only difference here for number 4. And then the tax credit's the same. And then number 5, this is the big one that I think everybody's struggling with, is if your employee cannot work remotely and has to take care of a child whose school or place of care is closed, they get 12 weeks paid. And this could be intermittent. So maybe one parent's taking care of the child 1 week and then your employee's working, and then vice versa. So this again is extended through the end of December of this year, if the schools are continuing to be closed through then. So this one is the one that you really need to know. For childcare, it's 1 to 12 weeks paid at 67%. And then you get the employer, get a credit for that time as well. And so definitely make sure that you read up on this if you haven't already figured this out. It says 1 to 2 weeks. See, there's sick leave and there's FMLA leave. The way I have it laid out here is just so you know, that's 12 weeks combined. The first 2 weeks is sick leave, the rest is FMLA. But generally speaking, it's treated the same on the employee side. So here are the caps. And these can be scary depending on how much you pay your employees. And so for reasons 1, 2, 3, and 6, the employee themselves is experiencing something. There's a sick leave cap of $511 per day, or $5,110 in aggregate. If you have low paid employees, you're not going to reach that. If you have higher paid employees, this isn't going to necessarily help them. It's going to help them a little bit, but they're not going to get fully restored. For family care, reason 4, so they're taking care of somebody who might be sick. This is not the child care reason. The caps reduced to $200 per day, and there's a $2,000 aggregate. So why is this important? This is important because remember, if you are going to allow them to use this, instead of maybe laying them off, you have to front this money until you can get the cap back, unless you can get a loan somewhere in between. For the child care reason, number 5, there is also a cap of $200 per day. So remember, this one and this one are at 67% of their regular pay. And so for the child care, there is a cap of $200 per day, but the total cap is $12,000. So $2,000 is a sick leave, $10,000 is the FMLA leave. It's, behind the scenes, you're going to need to track that as well, because you have to track everything so that you can, if you get audited, you can submit it to the government as well. I have tracker forms. I have a bunch of policies that we've created and that I've created with my clients, and you're free to use them. Just let me know, contact me. My contact information will be at the end. A full-time employee is eligible for 12 weeks of leave at 40 hours. So this is the same thing. If you have a part-time employees, then you use the part-time employees. They don't all of a sudden get all those benefits that they weren't going to get before. And again, this is extended through, as of now, December 31st, 2020, or whenever school opens. There's a total of 60 days that can be used for this. So even if they use it intermittently, it's a total of 60 days. This one here, the child care reason number 5, is the reason that small businesses under 50 employees might be able to be excluded from. But be very careful when you're making that assumption. Okay, so moving on here, essential workers, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm sure you have. Essential workers are defined by the Homeland Security, and there's a website here that you can go to determine if you're essential workers. I think we're at the point now that you probably already know if you are or not. Every state, so if you're on the video today and you have businesses or locations in different cities, counties, states, you need to know what they define as essential workers, because they can add additions to it. And so you have to make sure that you understand it per the state, maybe the county, the city that you're in. There are also CDC recommendations, not mandates, and we'll go over them in a minute as well, but I'm going to give you the website here. CDC is recommending, if you are essential or non-essential when we return to work, to check employees' temperatures up to 3 times a day with a non-contact thermometer. If this becomes a mandate, these non-contact thermometers it's going to be hard to find one. So I would encourage you to try to find one now. They're also suggesting wear a cloth face covering, and they literally have on their website how to make homemade ones as well. And then document. So what I'm having my clients do is, when their employees come in the morning, they check in, but they don't actually go to work. There's a safe area that they go to, and they get their temperature checked to see if they have a fever, and then they have to sign that they're feeling okay and that they haven't been in contact with anybody. Why is this important? This might be important. Hopefully we won't get there, but if there ends up being an OSHA investigation or maybe a workers' comp claim, we don't really know at this point in time what's going to happen with all of that. But we do know we live in a litigious society, so I'm sure something's coming down the pike, unfortunately. I'll jump into layoffs and unemployment, and then we'll go to the websites. Obviously, I've mentioned several times that if you're going to use the Families First Coronavirus Response Act tax credits, you need to have that money that you front it until you get it back in a tax credit, unless you're able to get some kind of loan to float you in the meantime. If you can't do that, then your next option is, unfortunately, a layoff, so that your employees can file for unemployment. I have caution flags all over this. While unemployment for some workers seems like a really great idea because they're going to make some really good money right now, unfortunately, Florida has been extremely slow. I think the slowest in the country right now of actually approving unemployment. People that have applied in the beginning of March are just getting unemployment. The federal unemployment now. So, if you are worried about your employees and you want to have them as employees when this is all done and said, I would, suggest that you go above and beyond and do what you can and avoid unemployment. However, sometimes that is just unavoidable. Make sure that you document, whether if it's just a simple email or, I prefer to give them something like a PDF so that they can upload it to the unemployment site. That way the less confusion there is on the unemployment office's side, the quicker their claim will be approved. And so additionally, if you document why you're temporarily, permanently, whatever it is, laying them off, then you're able to call them back quicker and not have employees get a taste of unemployment without working, if you know what I mean. So again, one of the requirements here is the unemployment information, and I have it open on another screen in a minute. It was a 6-page document, then it was a 9-page document. Now it's a 39-page document. So what I'm suggesting is just write a letter, put this link in there, and then just email the link to the employee so that they have it on their personal computer and they're not having to worry about scanning it in and everything. We want to go above and beyond for employees right now. That way we can get them back when we need them. So if someone quits and files for unemployment, again, same thing. I would say, make sure you document, even if it's just an email saying, I accept your resignation. And then that way, in theory, they should not be getting long-term unemployment. Currently, unfortunately, the governor of Florida has not announced that has not made an executive order to not hit the employer's unemployment account. Many other states have done that and said if your employees file for unemployment, it's called a chargeability. So you pay a tax for unemployment, and the more your employees use unemployment, the higher your rate goes. And the reason they do that is because, well, you're not being very good managers because you're hiring people that aren't qualified and then you're letting them go. And many states have said, no, we're not going to charge you for unemployment for this COVID, and Florida has not done that yet. So it's very, very important to document why somebody is leaving. Real quickly, I'm sure you guys have got this information beaten into you already. So we have some opportunities to get some money to help you through this difficult time. Unfortunately, the money has run out and we're waiting for Congress to approve a second funding. I'm confident that they're going to approve something. So with that said, if you've not have already contacted your bank and filed for the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, I would do that. If your bank is taking applications. Many banks are not taking applications. Many banks have approved applications, but they're waiting for more funding to release the money. But if you can get into your bank to get an application, you can get, 2 months of pay for your employees. And so you can bring them back, even if you don't have work. You could do training, you can do cleaning, you could be very, very creative in what you do so that your employees get paid and don't have to wait for unemployment. And then at the same time, it helps you a little bit to take care of your employees. There's also a small loan for economic injury disaster loan, and this is also closed for now. I don't even think they're taking applications, but keep an eye on if Congress passes another funding, because one of these might open up. This other one here, again, I'm not an accountant. I just know enough to be dangerous. So that's why I have on here, ask your accountant. But if you were not able to get the PPP or the SBA, any of the SBA loans, you need to look at the retention credit. I put a link here, and again, I will upload this as a PDF on my website. Don't worry, I don't track your email or anything, just download it and enjoy. Employers are eligible for the credit if they operated trade or business this year and they basically have a suspension of their operation or a significant decline in gross receipts. So if that's you, you may be able to get a tax credit to help pay your employees. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. Let me switch to these websites that I want to show you because I know we only have a few minutes left. So this is the Department of Labor website. And again, I'll provide you all these links. It was not this fulfilled recently, and every day, including last night, they updated it as well. This is a website that you want to be on all the time. There are fact sheets here for the employee, and there's fact sheets here for the employer in multiple languages. This right where it says questions and answers, this link under here is what you want to know, and I'll take you to that in a minute. Other than that, if you haven't already, download it and put in your break rooms and email to remote workers a poster. It's mandatory. You have to do it. So this is the English version. These are all other versions. And then there's a federal version as well. So make sure that you do that. So the questions and answers, again, this started out as like 50 and then it kept going up, and they updated even more questions and answers. I like to scroll right down here, but they've kind of categorized it. But, it goes right into when's the date. There's a ton of questions and answers in here. If I have more than 500 employees, does it apply to me? No, but you may have to do other things as well because regular FMLA applies to you as well. So there are, and pardon me for going so fast and making you dizzy, but as of, there was only, I think, 79 questions, and now there is, as of yesterday, I think 88 questions. So there's really great questions and answers on here. I have to hand it to the Department of Labor. They're doing a great job of keeping us informed. So make sure that you go in here and find out information about here. The biggest thing I would tell you is that you can't double dip. So you can't, be saying, oh, use your PTO and then we're going to use this credit and we're going to use this over here and then this over here. So, don't get greedy. You can't double dip. This website right here is the CDC's website. And again, these links are in my presentation. So the CDC is, they cannot mandate anything. So they're not the Department of Labor, but this is guidance, which I think you should take so that we can avoid any lawsuits down the road in case something happens. And so this is a lot of information on the CDC of saying, okay, you're bringing people, you're essential or you're non-essential, and you're bringing people back to work because, orders have been lifted. What do I do? And this gives you very detailed information, soap, water, all of that stuff, taking temperatures and making sure that they self-certify. I have all the forms that you need. So just if you need anything, just email me or message me on LinkedIn and I'll get them to you. And if I don't have them, I'll find them. This is the Florida Department of it's the unemployment insurance. Again, it's now a 39-page resource guide. It was last 9 pages. So what I would suggest you do is if you are laying anybody off, or if you already have laid anybody off, email them this link so they have it. There's a lot of really good questions and answers in here of how much am I going to get paid? What do I do? They've waived a lot of requirements like looking for a job. But there's technically 3 different systems because there's an app now too. But there's if someone applied for unemployment a couple weeks ago, they're in the Connect system, which is has been down a lot, and it was down all weekend for them to update it. But if they applied afterwards, they're in the new system, which appears to be going much quicker. This is information on the IRS website about the employee retention credit. And so there's a lot of great information on there. And then this is my website, thehrlady.com. And if you go to HR Advice blog, I have a lot of information right here. And then I have downloads as well that you can download for free. So hopefully this helps you. Sandy, do we have any questions?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I don't, we haven't received any questions, but this is a lot of information, obviously, and I appreciate it so much because you kind of narrowed down some areas that people can look for the information. And so I encourage you all to check out these things. And as Wendy said, it's so important to take care, even though you may have to lay off some employees right now, to give them the most resources that they can get. And then hopefully you can get them back when all of this is over.
Yeah. And let me just talk about that a little bit just for a minute about the unemployment, because it is confusing, and I'm not for or against it in any way. Every single company has its own unique challenges, and so I'd be happy to talk anybody through it. But if you do have to put somebody on unemployment, they get the regular state unemployment up to $275 a week. So I say up to because it depends how much they make. So let's just assume they make the amount to qualify for $275. So they get the $275 a week, and then for COVID reasons, they get $600 a week. So that's $875 a week. That's almost $21 an hour by being on unemployment. So you may think that's a great benefit for your employees, and it is, but they may not want to come back to work, which is where, so say a month from now, you're open and you need everybody back full time. And that employee says, no, I want to stay on unemployment because I'm making 21 bucks an hour now, versus where I was with you only making $12 an hour. That's why the documentation is very important, so that you, the employer, can report to the unemployment office, no, I'm calling them back, and then they will be removed from unemployment. And I don't know how long this is going to take. This may take, a while. What I see happening is that some people, right or wrong, will continue on unemployment. The employer is going to try to stop it. The employee is going to get the money, and then they're going to have to pay it back later. You know, the state's not going to just let it go and say, okay, no problem, you can have it. They're going to come after employees for it later. So if there's any way possible that you can keep your employees off of unemployment, I really do suggest that, because first of all, the claims aren't being approved, so you're not really helping them right now. And then second of all, they may really like that money and not come back, and then you're kind of stuck with the, okay, I have no employees. My final thought is, you know, to treat people the way you would want to be treated, you know, and hopefully you would want to be treated well during this situation, because it was hard to find good employees before. If anybody is felt like they weren't treated well during this situation, it's going to be even harder to find good employees when we recover from this. That's all.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you all for tuning in. We are working on having some type of an Ask the Expert every week. So if you have some topics that you would like us to cover, whether they're related necessarily to COVID or not, we would be happy to look into finding an expert. If you happen to be an expert on a topic that you think that would be handy, let us know that as well. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Wendy, for doing this.
Sure. Anytime. Thank you.
She has all of her information on how you can get more information from her if you have questions. She's you can find her on LinkedIn. You can go to her website, or you can email her. And we just appreciate your willingness to take some time out and help us to understand this. It's a little complicated, I think, for those who maybe aren't normally in, they don't dive into this area as much. Maybe they don't have as many employees, or they have someone full-time that deals with this. But it's interesting to look at the navigation, and I look forward to going back and clicking through some of these websites as well.
Absolutely. Take care. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you.